go to the abstract. Okay, until modern and the global industrialization, the exploitation of fishery resource remain the key to the food security and employment base for millions of people. So, this study is about future of aquaculture in perception of study and demand in Malaysia, with 3 objectives that have been observed, which is to study the total production of the aquaculture sector as a result of demand and supply in the market in Malaysia. And second, identify the contribution of the aquaculture sector to national income. And lastly is to study the role of production types of the aquaculture sector on market demand and supply to future generation. Okay, the method used to complete this study is through 3 events, which is data collection, variable description, and descriptive analysis. By using this method, so the result had been found. First, findings show that aquaculture activities in Malaysia are divided into large, medium, and small scale production. Findings also show that seaweed has been the largest contributor in the aquaculture sector to the national income. And lastly, it is also found that the amount of offer in the market has exceeded the demand and it will result in excess supply. For this study, it is hoped that this aquaculture sector remains intact and grows in the future.
Fisheries are the yearly and most important activity that have provided food, employment, recreation, and industrial resources that contribute to culture and economic development. The exploitation of fishery resources is still the key to food security and employment base for millions of people and is one of the most important factors in global economic development. In general, all human activity related to fishery resources, whether through marine catch or aquaculture, are known as fisheries. In Malaysia, the aquaculture industry is growing rapidly. The effort of the Ministry of Agro-Based Industry to create various acts and programs to assist and further encourage the development of this industry. People are now aware that the field of aquaculture is indeed promoting lucrative results because the demand for protein sources from fish is increasing every day. Demand and need for fishery resources is a very significant first factor and plays an important role in the development of fishery activities. Changes and increasing demand for fishery resources will lead to changes in the goal and orientation of fishery activity. Fishery resources are among the factors that influence the change and increase in demand for fishery resources. Why the change and development of method and technology in fishery activity is a key factor to the process of achieving goals and orientation of fishery activities. Aquaculture supply cannot meet the growing demand for aquaculture. The meager supply of aquaculture is not able to meet the growing demand if the demand is more than the offer by the operator. The number entrepreneur plays an important role in fulfilling the future of aquaculture in Malaysia.
Now we go to the literature review. For the first one is about consumer awareness and acceptance of aquaculture practice and product in Penang, Malaysia. Writer by C. To K Leng, Chan Ngai Weng, Tan Miao Leong, C. Tawi, and Narima Samad in 2019. For the objective in this article is about to identify consumer perception on aquaculture industry. Second is to study consumer awareness on sustainable of aquaculture practice, and the next one is to find way to increase consumers awareness and acceptance of sustainable aquaculture practice and its product. For the second article is about the supply and demand for environmental goods and service by ASEAN aquaculture and the implication of sustainability. Writer by Beveridge, Malcolm and Philip, Michael and McIntosh, and Donald. In year 2008, the objective in this article is about to explore the relationship between aquaculture and environment in Asia. For the second is to focusing on the demand for environmental environmental goal and service among different sectors. For the third article is about effect of aquaculture of world fish supply, writer by Naylor, R. Goldberg and R. Primavera in year 2000. The objective in this article are to study the effect of aquaculture of world fish supply, and the second is to explore way to increase the supply of fish and adopt more ecologically sound management practice. The title for Article 4 is Aquaculture is a Conventional Issue in the USA, writer by Jing Ji Chu, James L. Anderson, Frank H. and Lee K. Tudor in year 2010. The objective in this article is to compare the perceptual difference of aquaculture stockholder in the USA and Norway. For the second is to investigate how their perception influence their decision to support aquaculture development. For the Article 5, title is Climate Change Effect on Aquaculture Production Performed in Malaysia, writer by Rosita Hamdan, Azma Osman and Fatima Kari in year 2015. The objective is to identify the effect of climate variability as an environmental pressure on aquaculture production in Malaysia.
Journal Article 6 from Jumatli, Aziah Ismail and Muhammad Shaufi, 2021, titled Promotion of Sustainable Aquaculture in Malaysia. Aquaculture production jumped from less than 80,000 metric tons in 1992 to 427,000 tons in 2017, valued at Malaysia ringgit 3 billion. Demand for fish expected to continue to grow with anticipated human population growth. Journal Article 7 from Nuhotran, 2017, titled Indonesian Aquaculture Futures, an analysis of fish supply and demand in Indonesia to 2030 and role of aquaculture using the Asia Fish model. Indonesia is the second largest fish producer in the world after China. Government has set ambitious aquaculture production target with a goal of 11.8 million tons by 2019. Aquaculture will likely overtake capture fisheries as the main supply of fish in Indonesia between 2026 and 2030. Next, Journal Article 8 from Peter Edward, 2015, titled Aquaculture Environment Interaction, Past, Present and Likely Future Trends. Inland aquaculture, especially in ponds, is likely to continue to dominate global aquatic food production. Aquaculture is mostly an environmentally compatible and it uses on-farm residues and byproducts such as crop residues, human manures or natural food in open water bodies. Later literature review from Hade E. Proschad and others, 2018, titled Avoiding the Ecological Limits of Forest Fish for Feed Aquaculture. Aquaculture species rely on wild capture forest fish for essential fatty acid and micronutrient. In long term, nutrient equivalent alternative feed source are essential for more rapid and certain aquaculture sustainability. So it is very important to balance diet, especially for livestock fisheries and aquaculture. And then literature review from Cyrus Martin, 2017, titled Not So Many Fish in the Sea. Even the most carefully managing system will not satisfy future demand for fish. The production of our fisheries peaked 20 years ago and has declined slightly since then. Asia is the biggest market for farmed fish, contributing nearly 90% of the global supply to the aquaculture industry.
For 3.0 is methodology. According to Pellet and Beck 2004, a methodology refers to way of obtaining, systematizing, and analysis data. The first one we use is data collecting. Data collecting is the methodical process of gathering and analysis specific information to proffer solutions to relevant questions and evaluate the result. It focuses on finding out all there is to a particular subject matter. It's this study we use secondary data. Secondary data collections, on the other hand, it refers to as the creating of second-hand data collecting by an individual who is not the original user. It is the process of collecting data that is already existing, be it already published books, journal, and online portal. Its term of easier, it is much less expensive and easier to collect, such as article website. Gathering and using data contained in website article is also another tool for data collections. Collecting data from web article is a quiet and less expensive data collecting. Two major advantages of using this data reporting method are basis inherent in the data collecting process and possible security or confidentiality concern.
For assessment 2 in this study, we also use variable description to describe a dependent variable and independent variable. So, first, dependent variable is a production of aquaculture sector. This is because this study is the production of aquaculture sector in the perception of demand and supply in the future. This aquaculture sector is the process of raising living species to produce food and commercial product. Aquaculture can be divided into three types, namely freshwater, sea, and red sea. Second is independent variable. Independent variable in this study is total production of aquaculture sector. This total we select from the production result over 20 years from 2000 to 2020. Third, the independent variable for this study also the contribution of aquaculture sector to the country by species. This study used the percentage contribution of the aquaculture by type for head research observe the level of production of the aquaculture sector in the country. The species we use in this study such as seaweed, Africa catfish, white-limbed shrimp, sea bass, and so on. Lastly, total production of aquaculture sector by state and type of ecosystem also independent variable. This variable based on production source, namely from freshwater and brackish water. Freshwater ecosystem select according to the amount produced in the sector by state. Brackish water ecosystem of coastal aquaculture is agriculture and fishes activity around the coast. For data analysis, this method use descriptive analysis. This technique was chosen to analyze the quantitative and obtain that's the total production of aquaculture sector over period 20 years, starting from 2000 to 2020. This method is also used to analyze the total production by state and type of ecosystem, as we ask the percentage contribution of the aquaculture sector to the country. Data analysis technique were performed with the help of Microsoft Office Excel. The data is also presented into the form of the table, graph, and even description from the reliable source such as government.
Aquaculture production for 2018 experienced a reduction at the level of 391,977 metric tons. In 2018, inland aquaculture produced 51.3 million tons of aquatic animal, accounting to 6.5% 5% of the world farm food fish production. This refer aquaculture produce either from inland natural water sources such as river, lakes, and fish farm. This show that more supply for aquaculture production as per in 2018 with more competitiveness in market. For the next 2 years, 2019 and 2020, it can be seen in Figure 4.1 does not show significant difference despite the increase from 2019 to 2020. For 2019, aquaculture production is 411,782 metric ton, and for 2020, aquaculture production is 411,783.4 metric ton, which is the industry desire to lessen in its environmental impact coupled with have a technology development. Aquaculture has always improved in recent years. The farm fish should not longer dismissed to as unstable. This resource efficient protein can fill the gaps in supply to meet the demand of the world's growing population.
The contribution of the aquaculture sector to national income. Based on chart 1, we show the percentage contribution of major aquaculture species in Malaysia. There are several species and types of aquaculture life in Malaysia. Among the most is seaweed, which is 51.5%, African catfish 10%, white leg shrimp 9.53%, sea bass 5.75%, red tilapia 5.99%, Pangasius SP 2.74%, Cutlass 3.33%. Based on graph 2, we show the target production on aquaculture in 2010 until 2020. For 2010, the target aquaculture production released that year was 350, which contained freshwater fish, shellfish, sea fish, and sea prawns. For 2015, the target production of aquaculture released in that year is 490, which contain freshwater fish, shellfish, sea fish, and sea prawns. For 2020, the target production of aquaculture released in that year is 790 and also contain freshwater fish, shellfish, sea fish, and sea prawns. In graph 2, this shows an increase in aquaculture target production from 2010 until 2020 is 8.6% per year. Since 2010, Malaysia has reached a level of surplus for fish supply, but still face the problem of rising price. This is a challenge that needs to be addressed not only to ensure the adequacy of resource, but to ensure the ability of the people to obtain protein in food. Malaysian water produced 1,482,899 ton metric of fish supply, with a value of RM 8.333 billion in 2013, while in 2014, production decreased by 1.67% to 1,458,128 ton metric, with a total value of RM 8.785 billion. Over-exploitation had led to the extension of fish supply in Malaysia for a long time. The government must continue to support and give priority to the management of the country marine catch fishery resource, as almost 80% of the country fish production comes from catch fishery. Among the government effort to improve the fisheries sector is through the investment of the Kedah Integrated Fishery Terminal Project KIFT in Kuala Kedah. The use of high technology that will be imported into the development of KIFT will also attract more investment in the fisheries industry. The government is also working to find sensible alternatives to replace the supply of resource from the sea, namely in the field of aquaculture. Aquaculture as one of the main source to increase fish production to meet domestic demand and develop export
potential. Aquaculture enterprise in the country have produced a total production of about 540 metric tons with a value of about Rm 3.47 billion in 2014 and have contributed 26% to the country total fish production. The Fishery Department is working to prepare an action plan to encourage aquaculture development to be able to contribute 50% of the country total fish production by 2020. The new target of 1.443 million metric tons has been made one of the key initiatives under the Agro Transformation Program Food to ensure that the fishery subsector continues to contribute to the adequacy of the country food supply. The aquaculture production targets under the National Agro-Food Policy the National Agro-Food Policy DAN is 794,000 metric tons by the end of 2020. The country aquaculture production performance over the past decade has increased at a rate of 8% per annum. The government has worked to improve the performance and achievement of the fisheries sector in Malaysia. The government targets the aquaculture sector production of 958,000 metric tons by 2030. The government targets the aquaculture sector production of 958,000 metric tons by 2030. The targets set include the production of marine aquaculture, freshwater and seaweed. To release this target, the government used a pro-business environment approach so that the development of the aquaculture sector can be driven through the involvement of the private sector. It is like the project under National Key Economic Area, which are Entry Pond Project, EPP for seaweed, while ICAGE for cage integration and pond integration project, which mostly involve marine shrimp. The government also has several strategies and approach in increasing the productivity of the livestock system, and government also encourage the development of new aquaculture project on a small and medium scale in groups or cluster. Thank you.
The role of production type of the aquaculture sector on market demand and supply to future generation. Based on the graph, it is shown the agriculture production by state and culture system in 2019. The highest aquaculture production for air tawar of freshwater is in Perak with a value of 44,509.92 metric tons, and the highest aquaculture production for air payau of brackish water is in Sabah with 206,783.29 metric tons. Production in air tawar consists of ponds as mining pool, cage, cement tanks, canvas tanks, estate and pen culture, while production in air payau consists of pond, cage, brackish water tanks, brackish water pen culture, mollusks and seaweed or wet. For air tawar, production increase were recorded by the state of Penang, Perak, Selangor, Pahang, Kelantan, Sarawak, Sabah and Wilayah Persekutuan Labuan in 2019. While for air payau, increases were recorded in Kedah, Penang, Perak, Negeri Sembilan, Terengganu, Sarawak and Sabah. State that record an increase for both products in aquaculture are Penang, Perak, Melaka, Terengganu, Sarawak and Sabah. Penang has recorded an increase in air tawar of 706.55 metric tons in 2019. For air payau, Penang also has recorded the high production in the aquaculture sector, that is 32,152.25 metric tons in 2019. In addition, Perak also has recorded both highest production in the aquaculture sector for air tawar and air payau in 2019. The record production in air tawar reached 44,550.99 metric ton compared to 2018 of 43,219.45 metric ton, while the value for air payau in Perak was recorded as 28,069.08 metric tons in 2019. It is shown as increased contrast with 2018. Besides that, an increase in both type for air tawar and air payau in the aquaculture production by state and culture in system for 2019
was recorded in Sarawak and Sabah, which the value is 5,557.10 metric tons and 2,465.07 metric tons for air tawar, whereas for the air payau, instead has recorded the value that is 5,689.38 metric tons and 206,783.3 metric tons. Then a decline for both products of production in the aquaculture sector for air tawar and air payau was recorded at Perlis, Johor and Pahang. The aquaculture production in Perlis has recorded a value of 130.92 metric tons in air tawar production. Production in Perlis for air payau is 438.45 metric tons, which will decrease to 455.23 metric tons in 2018. A decline causes Perlis to face the problem of lack of supply chain linkage with the market. Aquaculture production by state and culture in the system in 2019 for Johor is 5,165.70 metric tons for air tawar and 10,554.63 metric tons for air payau. In addition, the production for air tawar for Pahang has reached the total of 8,971.54 metric tons, and for air payau is 5,030.62 metric tons in 2019. The higher in production because the most people are interested in venturing into the sector. Production in the aquaculture sector for Kedah record decrease in air tawar production but increase in air payau in 2019. The value in total production for air tawar is 3,461.60 metric tons, a decrease of as much as 3,040.83 metric tons to 3,120.77 metric tons in 2018. Production in air tawar in Selangor is 16,620.01 metric tons, which is an increase of 4,109.63 metric tons than last year. However, Selangor had experienced a decrease in air payau production for 6,827.89 metric tons in 2018 to 4,622.99 metric tons in 2019. This is because, according to the Minister of Agriculture, import of fisheries product exceed the current needs of society. Negeri Sembilan and Melaka had faced the same situation in the aquaculture production for air tawar and air payau in 2019. Both states has faced a decrease in air tawar production, but they had experienced an increase in air payau production. This result in a decrease in the production of air tawar, which decreased from 4,109.63 metric tons in 2018 to 3,875.94 metric tons in 2019. For Melaka, the decrease in production from 6,040.77 metric tons in 2018 to 3,328.78 in 2019. Production in air payau for Negeri Sembilan and Melaka was record of 799.60 metric tons in 2019 and 409.73 metric tons in 2019. One of the suitable areas for fish farming is in Tok Bali, Kelantan. Production for this eastern region in air tawar for Kelantan record an increase of 727.51 from 4,954.13 metric tons in 2019 compared to production in 2018, 4,226.62 metric tons. But in Fort Terengganu, the aquaculture production was decreased for 2018 to 2019. In 2018, the production was recorded at 3,437.90 metric tons, and it decreased by 1,081.56 metric tons to 2,356.34 metric tons in 2019, while Terengganu has recorded an increase for air payau, which increased for 1,912.85 metric tons of 2,112.44 metric tons in 2019.
In conclusion, the future of aquaculture in the perception of supply should be at the point of emphasis because it can help in producing an adequate of supply. The combined effect of structural change in increase the number of aquaculture worldwide in line with declining wild fishing, increased wood population, and change in consumer preference associated with increase of dunes and positive health image associated with seafood. In future, the sector, given that global fishing stocks are in crisis, therefore, the future promotion of aquaculture in the perception of supply making to collaborative action is essential to ensure that the global fishery sector is here to stay.